Welcome, my name's R.K.Waltz. Today we're going to go through my list of top 10 white staples for Commander. These cards are not necessarily the best, or the most popular, but they are the cards I always consider when constructing a deck containing white. I consider these cards staples because they could be slotted into almost any white deck, and because they're not reliant on any particular deck archetype or strategy. This list is in no particular order, each of these cards can be equally amazing in their respective context. First, some honourable mentions. Tutors. Enlightened Tutor, Idyllic Tutor, and Open the Armoury. White has some excellent tutors available, but they tend to be specialised for tutoring enchantments and or artifacts. Now don't get me wrong, there are almost always excellent enchantments and artifacts to tutor for in white decks, some of which may represent the primary win condition of the deck. They may also be used to tutor for spot removal, such as Oblivion Room. Tutors can be excellent at maintaining the consistency of a deck, but I don't consider them staples in my deck design. The other two cards I'd like to mention are Aven Mindcensor and Mother of Runes. Aven Mindcensor is an excellent disruption card when playing against tutor effects. This also includes fetch lands and various other deck searching effects, and such disruption can highlight the weaknesses inherent in decks that rely on these. But Aven Mindcensor kind of feels like the fun police. It's a potent card in control or stack strategies, especially against tutor-tuned decks, but it can also whiff against purposely under-tuned decks that avoid these effects. I would instead consider Aven Mindcensor to be a white staple sideboard card, if you're running a sideboard.
I don't need it. I don't need it. I definitely don't need it.
Then there's Mother of Runes. Mother of Runes can provide protection to a target creature you control, making it unblockable by creatures of that colour, making it an invulnerable blocker, and an illegal target for targeted removal. Without specifying another creature, she can also protect herself. However, Mother of Runes falls into a category of cards that I consider almost too powerful to be a staple in mixed or casual playgroups. Other cards that fall into this category include Necropotence and Consecrated Sphinx. These cards are difficult to justify when you're playing predominantly in mixed or casual playgroups. If you're looking for a competitive white staple though, you'd be hard pressed to find a better one drop than Mother of Runes. The first card on my list is Aura of Silence. Aura of Silence costs 1 and 2 white mana for an enchantment that reads, artifact and enchantment spells your opponents play cost 2 more to play. You can also sacrifice Aura of Silence and destroy target artifact or enchantment. I absolutely love this enchantment, included in all of my commander decks that don't have green. I consider this the second best enchantment / artifact removal card behind the ridiculously overpowered Aura Shards. Many players prefer Return to Dust over Aura of Silence, and I don't dispute that Return to Dust is an excellent card. Between the efficiency of probably removing 2 threats or providing instant spot removal, Return to Dust is a premier white enchantment and artifact removal card, but I consider Aura of Silence to be more of a threat.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
Not only does Aura of Silence make it significantly more difficult for your opponents to cast enchantments and artifacts for the duration that it's in play, but the threat of sacrificing this enchantment at any moment keeps your opponents guessing. Not only will that doubling season stay in their hand for longer, they won't even want to play it. The other reason I love this card is because of the second staple on my list, Sun Titan. Sun Titan costs 4 and 2 white mana for a 6/6 creature giant that has vigilance and reads, whenever Sun Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Sacrificed your Aura of Silence early in the game? What about those sack lands you played? Safi Eriksdotter? There are so many cards that combo with Sun Titan, and an even more extensive list of amazing non-sack permanents that Sun Titan can return to the battlefield.
Heroes never die.
For comparison, another popular white revival card is Karmic Guide. Now Karmic Guide is far from a bad card, but it only returns creatures, and only 1 creature per cast. The applications of Karmic Guide are simultaneously broader and more limited, with significant potential downsides. Sun Titan has limitations, sure, but virtually no downsides. There are very few decks that wouldn't have sufficient targets to make this an auto-include. The exception might be any deck that runs a significant amount of symmetrical graveyard hate, such as Rest in Peace, Grafdigger's Cage, or Leyline of the Void. The next card on my list is Grand Abolisher. Grand Abolisher costs 2 white mana for a 2/2 creature human cleric and reads, during your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. If your playgroup likes to sling counterspells left and right, this is an excellent card for protecting your spells. Grand Abolisher also provides protection from combat tricks during your combat. Docent of the Falling Leaf and Conqueror's Flail provide the same protection from opponent's spells during your turn, but Docent also affects you, and the Flail requires a creature. Grand Abolisher is cheaper to cast, instantly active, non-symmetrical, and also prevents activation of activated abilities.
As I expected, it's practically perfect in every way.
Preventing the activation of abilities on your opponent's cards during your turn has some interesting interactions, but the next card on my list just locks these abilities out permanently. Linvala, Keeper of Silence costs 2 and 2 white mana for a 3/4 legendary creature angel with flying, and reads, activated abilities of creatures your opponents control can't be activated. The limitation of only preventing the activation of abilities on creatures pales in comparison to preventing activation of these abilities permanently. Linvala is essentially a non-symmetrical damping matrix on a flying stick, and its resolution tends to be followed by a chorus of groans. Sorry Captain Sisay, Breya, Tessiger, any other commander with an activated ability? There are so many cards, combos and entire deck strategies that are hosed by Linvala. On a 3/4 body she's reasonably resilient, but unless there is a bigger threat on the field she will likely eat removal very quick. Have some Lightning Greaves on hand if you want to have the table flipped.
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
The next card on my list is Leyline of Sanctity. Leyline costs 2 and 2 white mana for an enchantment that reads, if Leyline of Sanctity is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. You can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. This is my second favourite Leyline behind Leyline of Anticipation, two of the most powerful Leylines in the cycle. Leyline of Sanctity is Witchbane Orb without the curse removal, and Orbs of Warding without the damage reduction. The advantage of running Leyline of Sanctity is the potential for a turn 0 play, and while this can be amazing, this isn't actually its primary advantage. Player Hexproof is particularly strong against targeted burn spells, a predominantly red effect, a colour that is particularly poor at dealing with enchantments. Both of the artifact orbs are comparatively easy to remove, making Leyline of Sanctity a pain to deal with for some decks. Player Hexproof also locks out many spells and abilities such as Targeted Mill, Creature Sacrifice, and can even prevent Mindslaver effects.
Can't touch this. Stop!
The next card on my list is relatively new and probably the most debatable conclusion on this list. Elms Collector costs 3 and 1 white mana for a 3/4 creature cat cleric with flash, and reads, if an opponent would draw 2 or more cards, instead you and that player each draw a card. White is arguably one of the worst colours for drawing cards, depending on your opinion of looting effects utilised by red. Elms Collector has an ability that most closely resembles Notion Thief, but, and it's fairly big but, Elms Collector is significantly more limited. Notion Thief causes your opponents to skip any draw beyond their first, while also allowing you to draw a card. Elms Collector drops the beyond their first clause, but requires opponents to be drawing 2 or more cards. It also reduces that draw to 1 card instead of skipping the draw entirely. This Robin Hood-esque effect kind of feels silly in comparison, swinging a bit more towards Men in Tights.
We're men in tights, tights!
It probably wouldn't feel so odd if Notion Thief hadn't been printed first, but Elms Collector is good against some powerful cards like Consecrated Sphinx, Brainstorm and Ponder, and Wheel effects, but doesn't trigger from steady draw effects such as Rhystic Study or Mind's Eye. It's worth noting that Elms Collector does not interact with single additive draw step cards like Howling Mind and Kami of the Crescent Moon, but will interact with Font of Mythos and the draw step draw duplication of Thought Reflection. Card draw in white is a rare commodity, and I think that Elms Collector does enough to be considered a white staple when better draw cards aren't available. The threat level of Elms Collector is low. It can be flashed in as a cantrip on a 3/4 body, and can disrupt big draws like Greater Good and Sphinx's Revelation. It works often enough to provide value.
60% of the time, it works every time.
The next card on my list is, in my opinion, the best white Wrath spell. Austerity Command costs 4 and 2 white mana for a sorcery that reads, choose 2, destroy all artifacts, or destroy all enchantments, or destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, or destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 4 or greater. The combination of all 4 of these effects is essentially Planar Cleansing, or Hour of Revelation, but doesn't include unspecified non-land permanents such as Planeswalkers. However, the benefit of Austerity Command is in its ability to select the specific effect that best suits your current board state. Do you have creature advantage, but with opponents with Propaganda, Ghostly Prison or Crawl Space? Destroy all enchantments and artifacts? Do you have a few big creatures held off by an army of weenie tokens? Destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less? Abilities that allow you to choose the desired effects make for some of the most powerful cycles in the format, including the commands and charms.
I can't decide whether you should live or die, or you'll probably go to heaven. Please don't hang your head and cry.
White has some powerful removal spells, and a lot of not so powerful removal spells. The next card on my list is certainly amongst the former. Swords to Plowshares costs only 1 white mana for an instant that reads, in its latest version, exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. Exiling a creature for 1 mana at instant speed is a powerful effect, and the life gain downside is usually negligible in Commander. For comparison, Path to Exile has the exact same effect, but instead allows your opponent to tutor for a basic land and put it into play tapped. Path could be used on your own target creatures as pseudo ramp, but I rarely ever see that being used. As spot removal, Path provides too much of an advantage for your opponent, particularly early in the game. I know a lot of players would disagree, but I've long since kicked Path out of my staples.
This is Sparta!
An alternative to Swords is Condemn, which has the same life gain downsides but also requires that the creature be attacking. It also puts the creature on the bottom of its owner's library instead of exiling it, which can be important in some situations. The next card on my list is Withered Wayfarer, which costs only 1 white mana for a 1/1 creature human nomad cleric, and reads, pay 1 white mana and tap, search your library for a land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Play this ability only if an opponent controls more lands than you. Withered Wayfarer does not directly ramp like Knight of the White Orchid, but for 1 white mana it allows you to search for any land. Any land. Search up Gaia's Cradle, Serra's Sanctum, Cabal Coffers, Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, Temple of the False God. The ability to search up these premium lands allows Withered Wayfarer to indirectly ramp, while also preventing missed land drops.
Nice.
Withered Wayfarer is an amazing 1-drop, and also one of the few 1-drops that I wouldn't be too disappointed to see late in the game. Tutor up the much needed Strip Mine, or the Urborg to go with your Cabal Coffers. The last card on my list is another land orientated card that doesn't directly ramp. Land tax costs 1 white mana for an enchantment that reads, during your upkeep, if an opponent controls more land than you, you may search your library and remove up to 3 basic land cards and put them into your hand. Reshuffle your library afterwards. Land tax can make a single land opening hand worth keeping. It can help colour fix, can keep your hand full for effects such as Magus of the Library, it can allow you to discard lands for future effects such as Splendid Reclamation. And if all of that wasn't good enough, land tax can also be used to filter out lands from your library, helping to limit dud draws in the late game. Another white enchantment that cleans up your library while ensuring land drops is Endless Horizons. However, the limitation to planes and the risk of having the lands permanently exiled upon removal demonstrates the stark difference in power. Endless Horizons is a playable card, while land tax is an amazing card.
Wow. Right?
Yeah, great, amazing.
White is a nostalgic colour in Magic for me. The first Commander deck I ever played was a Friends Darien deck. It's a colour of powerful abilities and efficient removal, exemplified by the cards included on this list. So what white cards do you consider to be staples? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider placing a like and subscribing to the channel. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.